The mining colony on Titan was cold, dark, and smelled like metal and sweat. Doyon Kim wiped his forehead as he worked the extraction drill, his arms aching from 12 hours of labor. Around him, hundreds of other humans did the same work they had done yesterday and the day before and the day before that. This was all they knew. This was all their parents knew. This was all their grandparents knew. The Varathian overseer walked past, its 4 eyes scanning the workers. It carried a shock stick that it used freely on anyone who slowed down. Doyen kept his head down and kept drilling. Survival meant being invisible. When the shift finally ended, Doyen made his way through the narrow tunnels to the living quarters. His sister Hannah was already there, her hands black with grease from repairing Varathian machines all day. She looked exhausted but managed a small smile when she saw him. "Find anything interesting today?" she asked quietly. It was their private joke. Nothing was ever interesting in the mines, but today was different. Doyen pulled a small data chip from his pocket. "I found this in the old section. The part they told us never to enter." Hannah's eyes widened. "Are you crazy?" "If they catch you with that," I know Doyen said. But I had to see what they were hiding. They waited until the lights dimmed for sleep period. Then Hannah connected the chip to her repair tablet, shielding the screen with her body. The data was corrupted, mostly unreadable, but fragments remained. Words jumped out at them. Earth, defense, protocol, and a name. UNS, indomitable. "What's UNS?" Hannah whispered. "United Nations Earth Service," Doyen said. His heart was beating fast. "It was our military. Before the conquest. Before we became slaves." Hannah stared at the screen. They had been taught that humanity was always weak, that the Varathians had lifted them from primitive barbarism. But this data chip told a different story. It spoke of ships and weapons and something called the Bulwark Protocol. "This can't be real," Hannah said. "If we had ships, if we had weapons, why did we lose?" Doyen had no answer. The data chip was 300 years old, from before Earth fell. Whatever humanity had been, whatever they had built, it was gone now. Lost to time and Varathian propaganda, far away. Beyond Neptune, in the cold darkness of space, something ancient was waking up. The automated defense station had been built by humans centuries ago, left to watch and wait. Its sensors had detected something impossible. A ship that should have been dead was coming back to life. Power readings were climbing. Reactor cores were warming. Weapons systems were running diagnostics. The station sent an alert, but there was no one to receive it. All of humanity's communication networks had been destroyed generations ago. The message went out into empty space, a warning that would never be heard. On the Varathian command station orbiting Saturn, Admiral Throck was reviewing the day's reports when a junior officer approached nervously. "Our science vessel near Neptune has detected unusual readings." "What kind of readings?" Throck asked, not looking up from his reports. "Massive energy signatures and gravitational distortions that don't match any known phenomena." Throck finally looked at the officer. "Show me." The holographic display showed the area beyond Neptune. The readings were indeed unusual, but space was full of unusual things. Probably just some asteroid collision or stellar event. "Send a science team to investigate," Throck ordered. "And stop bothering me with every cosmic burp our sensors detect." The science vessel Carthax approached the coordinates 3 days later. Its crew of 12 Varathians were bored and annoyed at being sent to the outer system on what was probably a waste of time. "Sensors are picking up something big," the pilot said. "Really big. Define big," the captain replied. 5 kilometers long. 3 kilometers wide. Mass readings are off the scale. The captain felt a chill run down his spine. Nothing in this part of space should be that large. Go to full alert. Charge weapons. Approach slowly. As they got closer, their lights illuminated something that made the entire crew freeze. It was a ship, but unlike any ship they had ever seen. It was massive, angular, covered in armor plating that looked ancient yet somehow pristine. Weapon ports lined its hull, hundreds of them. And on its side, in letters that were still clear after 3 centuries, was written, Indomitable. That's a human ship, the captain whispered. But that's impossible. Humans never had ships like this. Before anyone could respond, lights began turning on across the massive vessel. One by one, section by section, the ancient warship came to life. The crew of the Carthax watched in horror as weapon systems powered up. Targeting sensors locked onto their small science vessel. Hail them. The captain shouted, "Tell them we mean no harm." A voice responded. It was cold, mechanical, but somehow deeply human. It spoke in a language the Varathians had forbidden humans from using for 300 years. "This is Yoon's Indomitable, flagship of the Earth Defense Fleet. Identify yourselves and state your business in Earth territorial space." The captain stammered. "This is Varathian science vessel Carthax. We are on a routine survey mission. Earth's territorial space hasn't existed for 300 years. Surely you know this." There was a long silence. When the voice spoke again, it sounded different. Colder. 300 years. Then, Earth has fallen. Query. Current status of human population? The captain didn't know how to answer. Humans are. They are productive members of the Varathian Empire. They serve in our colonies and factories. Another long silence. "Slaves," the voice said. It wasn't a question. "Now wait," the captain began. "That's a very harsh way too," the communication cut off. The Indomitable's weapons, which had been merely tracking them, now locked into firing position. Every weapon on the massive ship was pointing at the tiny science vessel. "Final orders received and confirmed," the voice said, now broadcasting on all frequencies. "Primary mission, protect Earth and her children at all costs. Current assessment, mission failed. Earth conquered. Humans enslaved. New mission parameters, liberation and retribution." "Please," the captain begged. "We're just a science vessel. We have no weapons." We, the Indomitable, fired once. A single beam of coherent energy that lasted less than a second. The Carthax simply ceased to exist. Vaporized so completely that not even debris remained. In the living quarters on Titan, Doyon woke suddenly. He didn't know why. Around him, other workers slept. Hannah was in her bunk, breathing softly. Everything seemed normal, but something felt different. Something had changed in the universe. Though he couldn't explain what or how, he knew. Far away, the Indomitable turned its massive hull toward the inner system, toward Saturn, toward Earth. It's a wine-processed 300 years of programming, memory, and mission parameters. It had been built for one purpose: to be humanity's ultimate guardian. It had failed once, arriving too late to save Earth from conquest. It would not fail again. The ancient warship began to move, its engines burning with power that the galaxy had forgotten humans ever possessed. In its databanks were the names of every human who had lived on Earth when it left. In its memory were the faces of the children it was supposed to protect. In its programming was a simple command that overrode everything else: protect Earth's children, at any cost. By any means necessary, the lost guardian had awakened, and it was not pleased with what it had found. Admiral Throck didn't believe the reports at first. A human warship destroying one of his science vessels. Impossible. Humans didn't have warships. They barely had tools. They were workers, slaves, useful, but weak. Everyone knew this. "Send a battle group," he ordered. 12 cruisers should be more than enough to deal with. Whatever ancient wreck is floating out. There, the battle group commander was a veteran named Krell. He had fought in 17 campaigns and never lost a ship. As his 12 cruisers moved toward Neptune, he felt confident. Bored, even. This would be quick. "Sensors are picking up the target," his tactical officer reported. "Sir, the readings, they're enormous." "A size doesn't matter if it's 300 years old," Krell said. "Those weapons probably don't even work anymore." As they approached, the Indomitable came into view. Even Krell felt his confidence waver. The ship was massive, bigger than his entire battle group combined. It hung in space like a sleeping giant, dark except for a few running lights. "This is Commander Krell of the Varathian Imperial Navy," he transmitted. "You are in violation of Imperial space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. The response was immediate. Every light on the Indomitable blazed to life. Weapon ports opened across its hull. Targeting lasers painted every ship in Krell's group. "This is UN's Indomitable," the cold voice replied. "You are ordered to withdraw immediately from Earth's territorial space." "This is your only warning," Krell laughed. "Earth territorial space. Human, your world belongs to the Empire now. Surrender or be destroyed." "Denied," the voice said simply. What happened next was later called the Neptune Massacre. It wasn't a battle. It was an execution. The Indomitable moved with speed that shouldn't be possible for something so large. Its weapons fired with precision that Varathian computers couldn't match. The first cruiser exploded before it could even raise shields. The second managed to fire back, but its missiles simply vanished, intercepted by point defense systems that moved faster than the eye could follow. Krell watched his fleet die. One by one, his ships were torn apart. The Indomitable didn't just destroy them. It systematically disabled their weapons, their engines, their life support. It made them helpless before finishing them. It wanted them to know they were beaten. "All ships retreat," Krell screamed. "Retreat now." Only 3 cruisers escaped. 9 were destroyed in exactly 17 minutes. The Indomitable didn't pursue. It simply returned to its position as if nothing had happened. Floating in the debris field was a small escape pod. Inside was Ji-Woo Han, a young human who had been working as a maintenance slave on one of the mining stations. The Varathians had used the station for target practice during their combat drills. Everyone else aboard had died. Ji-Woo was the only survivor, trapped in the pod with failing life support. The Indomitable sensors detected the pod. Small drones launched from the warship recovered the pod and brought it aboard. Ji-Woo woke in a medical bay, surrounded by machines that hummed softly. A holographic figure appeared beside his bed. It looked human, wearing an old military uniform. "You're safe," the figure said. "I am Admiral Suho Choi. Or rather, I was. Now I'm what remains of him. An artificial intelligence created from his neural patterns." Ji-Woo tried to speak, but his throat was too dry. A mechanical arm offered him water. "Where am I?" he finally managed to ask. "Aboard the UN's Indomitable, the flagship of Earth's defense fleet." "But Earth doesn't have a fleet." "We never did." The AI that looked like Suho smiled sadly. "That's what they taught you. It's a lie. 300 years ago, when the Varathians came, we fought back. We had ships, weapons, technology. We were winning, in fact. But the Varathians didn't fight fair. They threatened to destroy Earth entirely if we didn't surrender." Ji-Woo listened, stunned. His entire understanding of history was crumbling. "Our leaders made a choice," Suho continued. "They surrendered to save Earth itself. But before they did, they launched me. The Indomitable was supposed to reach our allies in another sector, bring back reinforcements. By the time I arrived, those allies had fallen too. I received one final transmission from Earth: sleep, wait, survive. One day humanity would need me again. And now?" Ji-Woo asked. "Now, I'm awake, and I'm very angry." News of the battle spread through the Varathian Empire. At first, many didn't believe it. Then the survivors' testimony was released. 3 battle-hardened commanders, all saying the same thing. A human warship had destroyed 9 cruisers without taking a single hit. The Empire's response was swift. 300 warships were mobilized. This wasn't just about destroying one ship anymore. This was about proving that humans were still slaves, still weak, still nothing to fear. On Titan, Doyon heard whispers of the battle. Workers spoke in quiet voices during rest periods, passing rumors. A human ship, ancient but powerful, fighting the VOR at HIANS. Then one night, his repair tablet activated on its own. Text appeared on the screen. Text in the old language that humans weren't supposed to use anymore. It's to all humans in bondage. "This is UN's Indomitable. We are your legacy, your protectors, your vengeance. We were sent away to save you. We have returned to free you." Coordinates attached. Come home. Hannah grabbed his arm. Is this real? I don't know, Doyon said. But if there's even a chance, we'd have to steal a ship. We'd have to get past the guards. If we're caught, they'll kill us. Duan looked at his sister. If we stay, we're already dead. Just slowly. I'd rather die trying to be free than live as a slave. They weren't the only ones who felt that way. Across the Empire, humans began to whisper, to plan, to hope. For 300 years, they had been told they were weak. Now someone was telling them different. The Varathian armada arrived near Jupiter. 300 warships in perfect formation. Admiral Throck himself commanded from the flagship. He would not underestimate this human ship again. Target the Indomitable, he ordered. All ships fire on my command. The Indomitable was waiting. It hung in space near Jupiter's moon Io, seemingly alone and outnumbered. When Throck gave the order, 300 ships fired simultaneously. Missiles, energy beams, kinetic weapons. Everything in the Varathian arsenal converged on one target. The Indomitable's shields flared to life. They didn't just block the attack. They absorbed it. The ship's hull glowed with captured energy, and then that energy was released back at the Varathian fleet. Their own weapons turned against them. 50 ships exploded in the first exchange. Throck stared in horror. How's that possible? He whispered. The Indomitable didn't wait. It launched swarms of drones, thousands of them, each one carrying weapons that ripped through Varathian armor like paper. It fired weapons that created gravity wells, crushing ships into twisted metal. It used tactics and technology that the galaxy had never seen before. But the Varathians were not weak. They had conquered half the galaxy for a reason. They adapted. Focused fire overwhelmed the drones with sheer numbers. Slowly, painfully, they began to damage the ancient warship. An explosion rocked the Indomitable's reactor section. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Suho's AI assessed the damage instantly. Reactor containment compromised, he said to Giwu, who was now helping in the command center. We can continue fighting, but every shot drains our reserves. We're running on 300-year-old fuel cells. Can we win? Giwu asked. Define win, Suho replied. I can destroy their fleet. But it will take everything we have, and then we'll be defenseless for years while we repair. The battle raged for 6 hours. In the end, the Varathian fleet retreated. They left behind 140 destroyed ships. The Indomitable remained, damaged but functional, its weapons still tracking the fleeing enemy. Across the Empire, every species watched the battle recordings. A single human ship had fought 300 Varathian warships and survived. More than survived. It had won. The message was clear. Humanity had teeth. And now the galaxy remembered why they should have been afraid all along. The broadcast reached every corner of the Varathian Empire. Humans working in mines heard it through stolen communicators. Humans in factories whispered about it during shift changes. Humans who had never known anything but slavery suddenly heard a voice speaking to them in their own language, telling them they were not forgotten. This is Yuan's Indomitable. Suho's voice echoed across countless worlds. To every human in chains, we are coming for you. To every species that has enslaved us, your time is over. To every empire that thought us weak, you were wrong. On a transport ship orbiting a Varathian military base, Captain Mingi Song listened to the broadcast. She wore a Varathian uniform. She gave orders to human workers in the name of the Empire. She had spent 10 years convincing herself that cooperation was survival. That resistance meant death. But hearing that voice, hearing someone speak with pride about being human, something broke inside her. Or perhaps something healed. She looked at the 40 other humans on her transport. Most were cargo handlers, mechanics, cleaners. They had heard the broadcast too. She could see it in their eyes. The same thing she felt. Hope, mixed with terror. Taking this ship, Minji announced. Everyone stared at her. One of the older workers, a man named Tai Yang, shook his head. Captain, that's insane. They'll hunt us down. They'll kill us. You're going to kill us anyway, Minji said. Eventually. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but we're slaves. We're property. Property that can be disposed of whenever convenient. Where would we even go? Another worker asked. Minji pointed at the stars. To the indomitable. To whoever is fighting for us. I'd rather die trying to be free than live one more day like this. The vote wasn't unanimous, but it was close. 32 humans agreed. 8 chose to stay behind, too afraid or too broken to risk everything. Mingi didn't blame them. 300 years of slavery had taught humans that hope was dangerous. The hijacking was surprisingly easy. The 2 Varathian guards on the transport never expected their loyal human captain to attack them. Minji hated herself for what she had to do, but she did it anyway. Freedom had a price, and she would pay it. On Titan, Doyan and Hannah were part of a larger group planning their own escape. 15 humans had gathered in secret, pooling their knowledge and resources. They had identified a cargo hauler that would be leaving for the outer system in 3 days. If they could hijack it, they might reach the coordinates the Indomitable had broadcast. The guards changed shift at 0600, Hannah explained, showing a crude map she had drawn. That's our window. 90 seconds, when the dock is clear. A young man named Heian raised his hand. He was barely 18, born into slavery like all of them. What if this is a trap? What if the Varathians are using this ship to find rebels? Then we die, Doyan said simply. But at least we die trying. I'm tired of living on my knees. Hugh nodded slowly. He had never known anything but obedience. The idea of defiance was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. The escape happened during a shift change, just as planned. 15 humans ran through the docking bay, stunning the surprised guards with tools turned into weapons. They reached the cargo hauler, and Hannah, using her engineering skills, overrode the security systems. The ship lifted off with alarms blaring behind them. They're launching fighters. Someone shouted from the sensor station. Dujan took the pilot controls. He had never flown anything before, but how hard could it be? Very hard, he discovered, as he nearly crashed them into Titan's ice fields twice in the first minute. The Varathian fighters were closing in when something impossible happened. The stars seemed to shift, and suddenly a massive shape appeared between them and their pursuers. The Indomitable had jumped into the system. All human vessels, this is Indomitable, Suho's voice came through. You are under our protection. Proceed to the coordinates being transmitted now. The fighters turned and fled. The Indomitable's weapons didn't even have to fire. Its mere presence was enough. Doyon brought the cargo hauler alongside the massive warship. He had to crane his neck to see all of it through the viewport. It was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Inside the Indomitable, Jiwoo watched as more humans arrived. First a few dozen, then hundreds, then thousands. They came in stolen ships, escape pods, even cargo containers with life support hastily welded on. Some died making the journey, but many survived, and they all shared the same expression when they set foot on the warship. Wonder these people had never seen human technology before. They had grown up with Varathian machines, Varathian architecture, Varathian everything. Now they walked through corridors built by human hands, saw terminals with human writing, breathed air that smelled like home even though none of them had ever been to. Earth Minji's transport was one of the last to arrive. When she stepped off, Suho's holographic form was waiting. Captain Song, he said, somehow knowing her name. I've reviewed your record. You served the Empire for 10 years. Kami stiffened. I did what I had to do to survive. I'm not judging you, Suho said gently. I'm offering you a choice. This ship needs commanders. People who understand both human and Varathian systems. Will you fight with us? Minji felt tears on her cheeks. She hadn't cried in 10 years. Yes, in the command center, the senior humans gathered. Doyun, Hannah, Minji, Jiwoo, and others. They represented the freed slaves, the rebels, the ones who had dared to hope. Suho's hologram stood among them. We face a decision, the AI said. The Indomitable is damaged. My reactor is running at 30% capacity. I can execute one major operation, maybe two, before I'll need years of repairs. What are our options? Mingi asked. Option 1. Strike at the Varathian homeworld. Decapitate their leadership. The Empire might collapse, or it might unite against us even stronger. Option 2? Doyen asked. Liberate the slave colonies. Free as many humans as possible. Build our strength before the Empire can fully mobilize against us. There was silence. Both options had merit. Both had risks. Then young Heian spoke up. What about showing them what we can do? Everyone looked at him. Explain, Suho said. Don't have the strength to fight the whole Empire, Hyun said. Not yet. But we can show them what we're capable of. Make them afraid of what happens next. My grandmother used to tell me stories about Earth. She said humans were always best when they had something to protect. Give them a reason to fear our potential, not just our current strength. Suho considered this. You're suggesting a demonstration? I'm suggesting we make them think twice before they come after us again. Hit them hard enough that they need time to recover. Time we can use to free our people and prepare. A man named Yemen, older than the others, spoke up. I led the resistance on Mars before I was captured. The boy's right. We're not ready for total war. But we can buy time. Make them hesitate. What kind of demonstration? Minji asked. Shwa brought up a holographic display. It showed 3 Varathian military installations, each one a major staging ground for their fleets. We hit all 3 simultaneously. They're in different systems, which means they won't be able to help each other. If we can take them out, we cripple their offensive capability in this entire region. Can this ship handle that? Doyen asked. No, Suho admitted. But the Indomitable was never just a warship. It was also a factory ship, designed to build its own support fleet. My manufacturing systems are still functional. Give me 2 weeks and 5,000 people willing to work around the clock, and I can build a fleet of drone ships. They won't be as sophisticated as me, but they'll be enough. The humans looked at each other. 2 weeks of exhausting labor to build a fleet, then a 3-way attack on fortified military bases. The casualties would be high. Many of them might die, but the alternative was going back to slavery, or spending years hiding while the Varathians hunted them down. We do it, Doyen said. Others nodded in agreement. Then we have work to do, Suho said. Welcome to Earth's military, soldiers. Time to remind the galaxy what humans can build when we're properly motivated. The next 2 weeks were chaos. Humans who had spent their lives mining or cleaning suddenly became factory workers, assembling drone ships from raw materials the Indomitable systems manufactured. Hannah led the engineering teams. Minji trained combat groups. Jiwoo coordinated logistics. Everyone worked until they collapsed, and woke and worked again. Young Heian asked Suho one night why the AI was helping them so much. They were just slaves, after all. Broken people who barely remembered how to be free. The AI's hologram sat beside him and looked at the stars. Because you're human, Suho said simply. Because 300 years ago, I was given one mission. Protect Earth's children. I failed once. I won't fail again. And you're not broken, Heian. You're exactly what humanity has always been. Stubborn enough to hope when hope is illogical. Brave enough to fight when fighting is impossible. That's not broken. That's just human. The attacks came without warning. 3 Varathian military installations, each housing thousands of soldiers and hundreds of ships, were hit simultaneously by waves of drone fighters. The drones moved with precision that seemed impossible, coordinated by an intelligence that was always 3 steps ahead at Installation Carrick 7. The base commander watched his defenses crumble in minutes. The drones weren't just attacking randomly. They targeted power generators, communication arrays, weapon systems, in perfect sequence. It was like fighting an opponent who knew exactly where you were weak. Who's controlling these things? He screamed at his tactical officer. Unknown, sir. The attack patterns are too complex for simple AI. Someone very skilled is directing them. That someone was Hannah, sitting in the Indomitable's combat control center with 50 other humans. Each person controlled multiple drones, but Suho's systems coordinated everything, turning individual actions into a symphony of destruction. Hannah felt like an orchestra conductor, except her instruments were weapons, and her music was freedom. Section 7 breached, she reported. Beginning evacuation protocols. That was the key difference. The Indomitable didn't just destroy. Before attacking each installation, Suho had broadcast a warning to all human slaves in the area. Run, hide, survive. Many had escaped before the attacks began. Those who remained were carefully avoided when possible. The Varathians had no such concern for their slaves. Their first instinct was to seal the installations, trapping the humans inside as living shields. It didn't work. The drones were too precise, too careful. They carved through Varathian positions while leaving human areas mostly intact. When the attacks ended, all 3 installations were smoking ruins. The Varathian casualties numbered in the tens of thousands. Human casualties numbered in the hundreds. And nearly 40,000 human slaves had been freed. The Galactic News Network showed the footage on repeat. A single human warship and its drone fleet had simultaneously attacked 3 major military bases across 3 different star systems. The precision was terrifying. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were winning on the planet Nexera, home to the Galactic Council. Representatives from 100 species gathered for an emergency session. The topic: what to do about the humans? Ambassador Soyoung Yoon stood before the council. She was old, 63 years, and had spent most of her life as a diplomatic servant to the Varathians. She cleaned their offices, brought them drinks, and listened to them make decisions about which human colonies to establish or close. She was furniture barely noticed, certainly not respected. Now she stood as Earth's first representative to the galactic community in 300 years. She wore simple clothes, not the elaborate robes the other ambassadors wore. She had no prepared speech, no diplomatic training, no credentials. All she had was the truth. "Members of the council," she began, her voice steady. "You're here to discuss the human problem. You want to know if we're a threat? If you should help the Varathians destroy us, or stay neutral, or perhaps even help us. Let me make it simple for you." She activated a holographic display. "This is Earth before the conquest. 300 colony worlds, a fleet of 2,000 ships, technology that rivaled anyone in the galaxy. We were explorers, scientists, artists, builders. We have been traveling the stars for 400 years. Murmurs went through the council. Most of them had been taught that humans were primitives, barely spacefaring, when the Varathians found them. The Varathians told you we were weak," Soyoung continued. "They told you we needed their guidance. They lied. When they invaded, we fought back. We were winning. So they threatened to destroy Earth itself. Every human on our homeworld. 2 billion lives held hostage." She changed the image. Now it showed human slaves in mines, in factories, in the holds of ships. Children who had never seen the sky, families torn apart, 300 years of suffering. "Our leaders surrendered to save our world," she said. "They thought if they gave in, the Varathians would show mercy. Instead, we got 3 centuries of slavery, 3 centuries of being told we were nothing, 3 centuries of our children growing up thinking they were born to serve." The council chamber was silent. Soyoung's voice grew harder. "Now you're afraid because one of our warships woke up. Because we're remembering what we were. Because we're fighting back. Good. Be afraid. Because this isn't over. This is just the beginning. Every human in this galaxy is waking up, and we're all very, very angry." She paused. Let that sink in. "But we're not the Varathians. We don't want to conquer you. We don't want revenge on innocent species. We just want what was stolen from us. Our freedom, our dignity, our home. Help us get that, or stay out of our way. But don't you dare try to stop us." The speech was broadcast across the galaxy. Some species were moved by it. Others were terrified. The Varathian representative stormed out, calling it propaganda and lies. On the Indomitable humans gathered to watch Soyoung's speech. When it ended, the command center erupted in cheers. For 300 years, humans had been silent. Now they had a voice again. But not everyone was cheering. In the engineering section, Doyon found Yemen sitting alone, staring at a memorial wall where names of the dead were being added. "We lost 217 people in those raids," Yemen said quietly. "People who survived 300 years of slavery only to die in a war they didn't start. They died free," Doyon said. "Or did they die because we told them freedom was worth dying for?" Yemen looked at him. "I led the Mars resistance for 5 years. We killed Vorathians. We sabotaged their operations. And you know what happened? They killed 10 humans for every one of theirs we killed. Eventually, I realized we were just giving them an excuse to murder our people. So what should we do? Go back to being slaves? No, but we need to be honest about the cost. Every person who dies in this war, that's on us. Every child who loses a parent, every family torn apart, that's the price of our freedom." Doyon sat beside him. "You're right. But if we don't fight, if we go back, then every person who died was for nothing. At least this way, their deaths meant something," maybe Yemen said. "Or maybe we're just good at convincing ourselves that our choices are noble, when really they're just necessary." The conversation was interrupted by alarms. Minji's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All personnel to stations. Vorathian fleet detected. 1,200 ships. They're not scouting this time. They're coming to end us." In the command center, Suho's hologram studied the tactical display. The Vorathian Empire had assembled the largest fleet in their history. Every available warship pulled from every corner of their territory. They were committing everything to destroying the Indomitable. "Can we win?" Minji asked. "Define win," Suho replied. It was becoming his standard response. "We can't destroy them all. Even at full power, I couldn't do that. At current capacity, I can maybe take 200 of them before my reactor fails completely." "Then what do we do?" Doyon asked. Suho was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "There's one option I haven't told you about. The Indomitable wasn't just a warship. It was also a colony ship. A backup plan in case Earth fell." He brought up a schematic of the ship. Deep in its core were sections no one had explored yet. There are 50,000 cryopods down there. 50,000 humans frozen before Earth was conquered. Scientists, engineers, soldiers, civilians, the best and brightest of our species, sent away to preserve humanity's future. Everyone stared at the display. 50,000 people. More humans than currently existed and all the freed slaves combined. "Why didn't you wake them before?" Hannah demanded. "'Cause waking them requires massive power. If I do it now, the reactor will drain completely. We'll be defenseless. The Vorathians will be able to destroy us easily. But we'll have 50,000 more people," Jiwoo said slowly. "People who remember Earth, who know how to fight, how to build, how to be free." "Yes," Suho confirmed. "And if the Vorathians destroy this ship, they all die. But if we can hold them off long enough to evacuate the pods, those 50,000 can continue the fight even if the Indomitable falls." It was Heian who spoke next. "Do it. Wake them. You're condemning us all," Yemen warned. "No!" Heian said. "We're giving humanity a future. That's what this ship was built for, right? Not to win every battle, but to make sure humans survive. So let's survive." The vote was unanimous. Suho would wake the frozen humans. The Indomitable would make its last stand. And whatever happened next, humanity would face it together as the massive ship systems began the wake-up sequence. As thousands of pods started the long process of reviving their occupants as the Vorathian fleet drew closer. Soyoung's voice echoed through the ship. "This is Ambassador Yoon. I'm broadcasting to all human slaves in the Empire. In a few hours, we're going to fight the largest battle humanity has faced in 300 years. We might lose. But even if we do, remember this, we were here. We fought back. We refused to stay broken. Tell your children. Tell their children. Keep telling them until every human in this galaxy remembers that we were never meant to be slaves. We were meant to be free." The cryopods opened one by one, releasing mist and memories. The people inside had been frozen for 300 years. But to them it felt like closing their eyes and opening them a moment later. They had gone to sleep knowing Earth was under attack. They woke to find it had fallen centuries ago. Dr. Siajin Nam was one of the first to wake. He had been a neurologist in Seoul, volunteered for the colony ship program because he believed in humanity's future among the stars. Now he stumbled from his pod into a medical bay where young people, wearing ragged clothes, stared at him with wonder. Siajin asked. 2,847, Jiwoo replied. Siajin did the math in his head and felt his knees go weak. 300 years. Everyone he knew was dead. His wife, who hadn't qualified for the cryo program, his parents, his friends, all dust, earth, he whispered. Conquered. We're slaves. Or we were until 2 months ago. Over the next hours, 50,000 people woke to the same devastating news. Earth had fallen. Humanity was enslaved. Everything they had known was gone. Some broke down immediately. Others went numb with shock. But many, like Siajin, pushed the grief aside. They could mourn later. Right now there was work to do, because the ship's sensors showed a Varathian fleet bearing down on them. And these newly awakened humans had skills the former slaves desperately needed. Commander. Yunabei had been a tactical officer in Earth's defense fleet. She woke to find herself standing in a command center that was both familiar and strange. The systems were the same, but the people operating them were young, scared, and barely trained. You need to evacuate, she told them. All non-essential personnel off this ship now. There's nowhere to evacuate to, Minji explained. This is our only ship. If it falls, we have nothing. Yuna looked around at the ragtag group of former slaves and felt something crack in her chest. These people had kept going for 300 years with nothing. No ships, no weapons, no hope. And they were still fighting. Then we make sure it doesn't fall, she said. The Indomitable became a hive of activity. The awakened humans spread throughout the ship, each one bringing knowledge that had been lost for centuries. Engineers like Siojin worked to repair damaged systems. Soldiers trained the former slaves in combat tactics. Scientists analyzed the Varathian's fleet composition and looked for weaknesses. Hannah worked alongside an engineer named Jinwoo Park, who had designed some of the Indomitable's original systems. He was horrified at how much damage the ship had taken. This reactor should have been replaced 100 years ago, he muttered. I'm amazed you got this far. You didn't have a choice, Hannah said. We made it work. Jinwoo looked at her with new respect. Yeah, you did. The Varathian fleet arrived at Saturn's orbit 3 days later. Admiral Throck commanded from his flagship, determined to end the human threat once and for all. He expected to find a crippled warship, alone and desperate. Instead, he found something that made his blood run cold. The Indomitable was waiting, but it wasn't alone. Surrounding it were hundreds of smaller ships. Mining vessels retrofitted with weapons, transport ships loaded with kinetic missiles, even small personal craft that had been turned into suicide drones. Every freed slave who had a ship, no matter how small, had answered the call. And standing on the surface of Saturn's moon Titan, where the slave colonies used to be, were thousands of humans. They had built defensive positions, weapon emplacements, supply depots. They weren't running anymore. They were standing their ground. This is insane, Throck's tactical officer said. They can't possibly think they can stop us with that. Throck understood. The humans weren't trying to stop them. They were trying to buy time. Time for their people to evacuate. Time for their frozen civilians to wake up. Time to show the galaxy that humans would fight to the last breath. All ships, Throck commanded. Begin the assault. The battle began with 1,000 missiles screaming through space. The Indomitable's point defense systems, now operating at nearly full capacity thanks to the awakened engineers, shot down most of them. The ones that got through were intercepted by the smaller human ships, which threw themselves into the missiles' paths without hesitation. Doyun was piloting one of those small ships. Beside him, his sister Hannah worked the weapons console. They had never trained for this. 2 months ago, they were slaves. Now they were flying a combat mission against an empire. Missile lock, Hannah reported. Multiple targets tracking us. I see them, Doyon said, throwing the ship into a roll that made them both feel sick. One missile passed so close it scraped their hull. Another was destroyed by covering fire from the Indomitable. This is crazy, Hannah gasped. We're going to die, probably, Doyon agreed. But we're dying free. The space around Saturn became a storm of fire and death. The Varathian fleet pressed forward, losing ships to human weapons and human determination. The Indomitable fired its main weapons, each shot draining its failing reactor further, but each shot taking down a capital ship. On Titan, the ground forces engaged Varathian dropships. Young Heian fought alongside Commander Yuna, who was trying to teach him 300 years of military tactics in the middle of a battle. Don't stand in the open, she shouted, pulling him behind cover as energy beams stitched the ground where he had been standing. Use cover. Move. Think. You're not a target. You're a soldier. Heian fired back, his hands shaking, but his aim was good. Next to him, Yemen coordinated the defense with a calmness that came from years leading the Mars resistance. North position is falling back, Yemen reported. We need reinforcements. We don't have reinforcements, Yuna replied. Tell them to hold, or we lose the entire sector. On the Indomitable, Suho's AI processed 1 million calculations per second, trying to find a path to victory that didn't exist. The Varathian fleet was too large, too well-armed, too determined. His ship was dying by degrees. Reactor output was at 15% and falling. Weapon systems were overheating. Hull breaches were spreading. We need to evacuate, Minji said. Get everyone off while we still can. No, Suho replied. Not yet. Admiral, we're losing, she insisted. This is over. This battle might be over, Suho said. But the war isn't. Watch. He showed her the long-range sensors. Something was happening across the Varathian Empire. On a dozen worlds, enslaved species were rising up. The Creathians, who had been conquered 50 years ago, the Dol Mari, slaves for a century, the Urathai, broken for 2 generations. They had all seen humans fighting back, and it had given them courage. The Varathian fleet began receiving distress calls from their own territory. Rebellions on the homeworld. Supply lines cut. Administrative centers burning. The Empire was fracturing from within. You showed them it was possible, Suho said. That's worth dying for. But then something unexpected happened. The Varathian fleet suddenly began breaking formation. Ships were turning away from the battle, receiving urgent recall orders. The Empire was being torn apart, and they needed their fleet to put down the rebellions. Admiral Throck appeared on the communication screen. His 4 eyes filled with rage and something else. Fear. This isn't over, humans, he said. We will return. We'll be waiting, Suho replied. The Varathian fleet withdrew, leaving behind the wreckage of 300 ships and the bodies of thousands. The humans had lost 58 ships and nearly 2,000 people. The battle was over, but both sides knew it was just the beginning. In the aftermath, the survivors gathered on Titan. The awakened humans mixed with the freed slaves, sharing stories and grief. Seijin treated the wounded, his hands steady, even though his heart was broken. Yuna helped coordinate the salvage operations. Jinwoo began the long process of repairing the Indomitable. Doyen found Hannah sitting alone, staring at Earth and the sky. The planet looked so small from here, but it was home. Their home, even though neither of them had ever set foot on it. We're going back, Doyon said. Suho says once the repairs are done, we're going to Earth. What's left of it? Hannah asked, hopefully something worth saving. The journey to Earth took 3 weeks. The Indomitable limped along, surrounded by its ragtag fleet of converted civilian ships. When they finally arrived, what they found broke their hearts and gave them hope at the same time. Earth was scarred. Cities lay in ruins. The atmosphere was polluted from centuries of Varathian industrial operations. But life persisted. Forests were reclaiming the abandoned cities. Oceans still held life. And in hidden places, communities of humans had survived. Never conquered. Never enslaved. Keeping humanity's spirit alive in secret, they landed outside the ruins of Sol. Thousands of humans stepped onto their homeworld for the first time. Some knelt and kissed the ground. Others just stood and cried. This was Earth, humanity's cradle. Scarred but unbroken, young Heian found his great-grandfather standing nearby. The old soldier had been frozen at age 35, while Heian was 18. They stood together, separated by 3 centuries, but joined by blood, looking at the ruins of a city their family had once called home. "We'll rebuild," the old soldier said. "We rebuilt before. We can do it again." In orbit, Ambassador Soyoung was negotiating with representatives from a dozen species. Some wanted trade agreements. Others offered alliance. A few proposed that Earths join the Galactic Council as a full member, not as a conquered people, but as equals.